Last item, Commissioner Greco. What is it? R9?
It's R9K.
R9K.
It's Seaville Restaurant Project located on South Point Drive.
Commissioner Greco?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I placed this item on calendar as this is in the top 2 matters that I get the most emails about. As most know, I live south of 5th. I used to live at one of the adjacent buildings to a project that's been going on, I guess, since the 90s, and it's starting to seemingly come to fruition. And there's a lot of folks that live near or around what is being constructed on the corner of South Point Drive and Ocean Drive, which is right at the entrance of the Continuum and also adjacent to the Portofino Towers and South Point Towers. And for those that are not informed, just very briefly, even for my fellow commissioners, there is a relatively large restaurant with rooftop operations, and it's going to have a huge impact on the area. And a lot of residents of those buildings have expressed concerns. But the main reason I placed this on is so we can have a brief, open, public discussion about the facts, about what the city can and cannot do, and what the city has already done, and what the city intends to do. Because I've received a lot of emails that are seemingly based upon bad information, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I personally, as somebody who lives down there, and I also formerly on the board of directors for the South of 5th Neighborhood Association, I personally did a walkthrough with the attorney for one or more of the condo associations. I've been in constant contact with the city administration as to what's been done, and I also welcome Joe Jimenez from the administration as well, and our city attorney, and we're going to allow for a few comments from the folks that are affected, but most importantly, I'm going to ask Joe to kind of give us a little bit of background as to what's been done, what's being done, and a lot of the issues that have been brought up regarding the rooftop operations, the valet operations, garbage operations, things like that, and some of the concessions that have been made. And just so people know, I'm going to actually pull a copy of this tape of this hearing, and I'm going to put it online, and I'm going to make it available to every single person that lives in every one of these buildings, so everybody is informed as to what is going on. So, regardless as to what the end result is, we are doing everything within our power because the residents come first, and quality of life comes first. And there are a lot of rules that have been passed south of 5th subsequent to this building permit being issued that were consistent with us trying to have it be a quiet neighborhood, have it be a low-impact neighborhood, no rooftop operations. But this has been going on for a long time. So, Joe, I defer to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Joe Jimenez, Assistant City Manager. I was just thinking, I started here on June 3rd, which is a Monday, and that Thursday, I went to a South of 5th Neighborhood Association meeting where Victor actually gave me their complaints on a board, and I still have it in my office. If anybody doesn't believe me, they can go up right now. And on that was this restaurant. So I've been living with this, monitoring this since I started here. The information that has been put out sometimes I don't think has been clear in that the city, prior to the vast majority of the people on this dais, and certainly myself, entered into a settlement agreement with this property owner which vested them in certain development rights. The emails that I get constantly, and I welcome them, and I want to know what people are thinking, seem to imply that the city is going to pass on some sort of application for this use. And that's simply the way things stand right now, just isn't the case. The building, the shell permit was issued. I think the original permit was pulled in 2007. With me also are Tom Mooney, the acting planning director, Eric Carpenter, the public works director, and Gary Held, the assistant city attorney, because there'll be pieces of this that everybody just knows a little bit better than I do. But if the original permit was pulled in 2007, there were certain regulations that were not in place yet governing the use of South of 5th rooftops, which at the moment limited to 40 seats no later than 8 p.m. The building plans that were submitted for this property showed in excess of 100 upstairs? Yeah, 300 seats total, and upstairs well over the number. Let's put it that way. 400 total and 137 on the roof, I think it is? 73. I've got it mixed up. So more than 170, I think, is a consensus fine. And those were shown on the plans. They were vested in that use. They showed it on the plan.
Explain why they were vested. Can you try to give as much detail
Absolutely,
so I understand? Why were they vested? Why was there a settlement? What was the dispute? Just so I.
That, if you don't mind, Commissioner, I'm going to leave that to the city attorney's office, which if you want the answer now, they can give it to you. Yeah, but that's precisely what I want.
Gary, why don't you stand up there with them and you guys can play Mutt and Jeff and give me the, so I understand.
Jeff, and he's
I can't
All right.
be the city attorney.
So what was the dispute? There was a dispute and there was a settlement agreement. What was the dispute?
So,
Do you mind if I ask? No, go right ahead. All right.
Gary Hill, City Attorney. Office. Actually, the agreement itself lays out the dispute. There was an original development agreement back in 1984 that governed development of what was then called the Cheatham parcel. It's the South Point parcel on which Continuum now sits. In 1997, City Attorney at that time, Murray Dubbin, had determined that development agreement had expired.
Was it city property? Was it city-owned
No,
land?
private development.
So then the development agreement was between who and who, and
It
why?
was to guarantee, to confirm development rights, long-term development. It could have been a phased development. There were a lot of
But it was a development agreement with the parties being who? Was one of them the city, or?
city and South Point Development Company.
But it was not city-owned land.
It was not.
So then why was the city a partner in a development?
Because we're granting, that's statutory.
That's what?
That's statutory.
It's used for large-scale developments to confirm development rights over a long period of time.
Okay. It's statutory.
Okay.
So there's a
So-
development agreement.
In 1997, I believe it was Murray Dubbin at the time, opined that the 1984 development agreement had terminated. That resulted in the developer initiating legal action to confirm his rights, to establish his rights in the ongoing status of that development agreement. And in 1999, that litigation, among other litigations, including a Burt Harris claim, resulted in this settlement agreement, an amended and restated Ocean Parcel Development Agreement dated March 5th, 1999. The operative paragraph in that development agreement, the 1999 development agreement, and I have copies of the first page and that particular page for the commission, is that certain development rights governing, there's a litany, development, density, permitted uses, growth management, environmental considerations, design criteria, and other matters pertaining to development shall be those in force and effect on October 9th, 1984. So essentially, we were agreeing in 1999 that the 1984 code applied.
Okay.
And for the record, that is Section 7 of the development
So
agreement.
basically, the dispute is that somebody, a city attorney, entered an opinion that because they hadn't done anything, that their rights had disappeared, and then they sued, and then there was a settlement agreement saying that, okay, fine, you have whatever your rights were in 1984.
Correct.
That's where we are.
So,
And that brings us all the way to today's date, and the city attorney's office is telling us that the code that applies to this development would be 1984?
For the most part, yes. That's how Continuum 1 was built. That's actually how Continuum 2 is built and why it looks that way. They never had to go to DRB. They built according to the original plan, or else that they probably would have been challenged in court. And that's how the building permit for this property was built. It was probably part of an original development plan.
Who owns this, and who's the developer?
Now I think it's related. Eichner is the name that I know.
I'm sorry, who?
Eichner is the name that I know. They're represented today by counsel. If you have.
Where's the exact location of the parcel?
What?
It's right at the entrance to the continuum. It's just to the west. It's the west entrance of the continuum.
Okay.
On the south side of South Point Drive. So I guess I just want to, on the south side of South Point Drive. So here's Gary, here's my question. Can we, as a city, tell this restaurant when they can operate on their roof? What can we tell them to do? What can't we tell them to do? What can we do to protect the residents is my main question.
And the other part of that question is, what can we do to regulate alcohol service? Because I believe there's some control over that. For the hours I'm talking about.
Okay, so I know a number of these issues were going to be part of Joe's presentation. I'm not sure how
Knock
much.
yourself out. Go ahead. When they have a question for me, I think they'll.
So our interpretation of the development agreement of 1999 is that those issues that are part of the litany of what I listed are those that are protected under the 1984 code. So, for
Can
example.
you say that another way? I didn't make any sense.
I kind of want specifics.
Yeah, just
when it
be-
comes
be-
when it
just
comes
be
to
clear,
what can we stop them from doing?
Yeah.
And to answer the second part of your question first, because I think it is important for everyone to be made aware of what we've done, instead of, because I think what we're saying here is what we can't do, and there is a lot that I believe we have accomplished, working together with the homeowners associations. Both of which were represented by council. We've met with them at least 3 separate occasions that I can remember, and Tom Mooney and I have also spoken to the operator. The operator has agreed to, and I gladly invite, I know Victor's here, and Victor and I have spoken about this. The deliveries are taking place in the back. The driveway is not being impacted.
Can you answer his question? I'm sorry.
But what we've done,
I'm sorry.
what we have done, what they have asked for, we have gotten with the homeowner association, and at the urging of this commission, and at the urging especially of Commissioner Grieco, who proudly claims, he's like, if I'm going to be the South and Fifth Commissioner, I'm the one that's going to go through this. And I've kept him abreast of this. We've gotten the driveway to not be impacted at all. The parking, that there was some debate as to whether or not the 30 spaces that they would have been required to have under the 84 code are not going to be used inside the continuum parking garage for certain key personnel, like the general manager of the restaurant, the chef, people like that, but the general public will not be allowed to go in there, neither will the valet. The deliveries will take place the same places the deliveries take place for the condominium. The trash pickup will take place around the back. So that driveway, which would probably, the pavers would not hold that load, that's a very valid concern, and that was moved around the back. The valet ramp that was originally wanted, the operator originally wanted it on the driveway, the Ocean Drive extension, is being brought around to South Point Drive. One mistake was made, I'm going to say it now, it was an error that's easily fixable, and we are in the process of fixing it. A right-of-way permit was erroneously given to the shell for an extension of what they called a valet ramp. No valet operational plan has ever been approved. And those emails that went around about a month ago calling me a liar, they were incorrect, because I was wrong about the valet permit, that it was some right-of-way permit. Saul Francis never saw it, Tom Mooney never saw it, I never saw it. I don't care what they are able to do there. We have never approved a valet operational plan for this restaurant. One is not approved today.
Okay.
And we're fixing that curb cut that was erroneously done.
Great.
So that part, I'm happy to admit to the mistake, but it was,
Can I just ask everybody a question, because Commissioner Greco, I'm not sure. So what is everybody here for? What's the
and
problem?
as I started to say, whatever,
We're getting-
whoever is giving them, whoever is giving the residents information, judging from the email that I'm getting, and I'm sure you all are getting,
Got it.
it implies that this restaurant's coming in for some sort of application and urging us to deny it.
Got it.
There is no application pending on uses.
Right.
There's building permit, and we'll inspect it according to the building code, but not the zoning code.
But is it because they're allowed to have a restaurant there? Is that what you're saying? I mean, Commissioner Grieco's initial question to Gary Held, his first question was, what are we allowed to tell them not to do? And you stepped in and said, listen, we've gotten some concessions, even though they're allowed to do things, we've succeeded in getting them not to do certain things. And we appreciate that. That's a tremendous benefit. But if you could answer the legal question, please, Mr. Held, so I understand what we're dealing with.
Okay, so there's 2 bases upon which they are entitled to have a restaurant, and they are protected from further regulation.
Okay.
The 2 bases are this 1999 development agreement and the equitable estoppel ordinance in the city code. So they received a building permit on June 27, 2007. The ordinance that deals with rooftop or above-ground deck activities was adopted in 2009. So they are protected from enforcement of that ordinance.
Okay, so basically, there's,
So
other than what Mr. Joe here has told us he's been able to achieve, there's nothing else that we can do.
well,
And I think Commissioner Malikoff, she's still.
there are a number of issues.
All right,
That was
let's-
just the first
okay,
issue. That was
Commissioner
just the use
Malikoff.
of the deck.
Got it.
I would like to go further with the use of the deck, please. I think that's one of the most contentious,
Yeah.
and it's going to
Right.
impact the neighborhood the most. Now that we understand that the valet has never been approved yet, it's going to be changed, the trash is going to be in the back, deliveries in the back,
Okay.
the driveway is free, those are all great, because those were some of the
You raised the
comments.
question of hours.
Rooftop, hours,
Right.
the
So-
no entertainment, no loudspeakers, all of that we need to hear from you,
So
please.
the planning director, acting planning director, or the planning director at the time of issuance of the building permit was presented with a set of plans that showed a certain number of uses on the roof. Those uses, we've determined, are grandfathered as of that date. So I don't know how many seats, what, is it 140 seats on the roof?
107.
And the planning director has imposed, and the operator has agreed not to have speakers on the roof. So music on the roof should not be an issue. There will be background music allowed in the establishment indoors itself. Background music means at a level that does not interfere with normal conversation. It should not create a noise issue. It's not entertainment.
And it's important to note that regardless of what any of this says, the noise ordinance still does apply.
Right.
Nobody
Right.
gets grandfathered into violating that.
Sure, so just to make.
It's never any consolation to them, though. I mean,
Just-
It's
just-
just what I-
Nah,
that we
they
gotta-
know, they all know
So I
how
wanna-
that goes.
Let's go.
Just
Sorry.
to make this clear, based upon the settlement agreement and based upon the plans that were submitted in 2007, we are legally prevented, as a city, as an administration, we are prevented from saying, hey, you have to close your roof at midnight or 2 o'clock. Like, they can stay open if they want to on the roof with their 177 tables, serving food and drinks until 5 a.m. if they wanted to. Is that an accurate statement?
I believe that the ordinance as adopted in 2009.
Just tell us yes or no.
Yeah, but Gary, give him a chance, Johnny. He's trying to spit it out.
No, but
The ordinance as adopted in 2009, we cannot enforce that ordinance against them, and that's the one that enforces the South of Fifth regulations on rooftop hours and operation.
you mean 09?
But that,
I'm sorry.
did that give them a 5 a.m. closing?
They
I
have
don't
not
think
yet
so.
applied for, nor have they received an alcohol beverage license. However, there is no restriction in the code that prohibits them from getting an alcohol license to 5 a.m. There is a BTR provision, we discussed this yesterday, I met with the planning director and ACM. It's a ministerial act, once they get approval from the state for an alcohol beverage license, to either get a 2 a.m. license or a 5 a.m. license.
We
do
can't
not
prevent
have-
them from getting a 5 a.m. license?
Typically, that is something that is done when they go to a land use board hearing. There are no land use board hearings that are necessary for this establishment.
So we cannot, if they ask for a 5 a.m. liquor license, there's nothing that this city or they can do to stop that.
It's
Is that
not a
correct?
request.
Can I just understand? Is that correct?
It's not a request, but it's
Gary.
not that they're asking for a 5 a.m., it's a BTR.
I'm sorry.
They just,
So
I still feel like you
So
didn't just clearly
there-
answer
okay.
Michael's question.
There is an argument that can be made that within the scope of the development agreement, there are some openings. One of those openings is a concept that deals with operating conditions for legal nonconforming uses. It's not, they've identified permitted uses, but they haven't identified operations as part of all of that they are protected
Okay.
from. We would have to adopt a citywide ordinance for them, to enforce this against them, not,
Explain, so that's,
if
we would have to adopt a citywide ordinance that deals with legal nonconforming uses and how they operate?
yes, something like that.
That sounds
Wouldn't it
like,
be
that
just for
sounds,
south of
the only
your
thing I'd say
neighborhood?
about that is if something has a legal nonconforming use, are you saying then to restrict how legal nonconforming uses operate that applies to all legal nonconforming uses?
I think so, yeah.
Could that run afoul of the fact that they are legal nonconforming uses?
No, as long as we don't eliminate the use, we might have an opportunity to regulate it. We did it before with juice bars that were previously in existence. We required them to go for conditional use. It's a controversial procedure and not fully developed at this point.
Mr. Held?
Ma'am.
The South of Fifth neighborhood has certain restrictions for the South of Fifth neighborhood where this is located.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Can't, instead of doing a citywide ordinance, can't it just be for the South of Fifth neighborhood as part of the
There are other
restrictions in
provisions.
that neighborhood?
There are other provisions of the development agreement that talk about this being, any modified rules, regulations would have to be citywide. So that's the way I read it.
Okay. Can we hear from someone else? Just, I think it's important.
Happy to read.
I love to,
What were you?
Jonah?
No, it's fine.
I want to hear from former Commissioner Diaz, who has a lot of paper with him. And he is building up his bicep by holding that, and I think it's only right for us to let him put it down, so he can say a few minutes.
I will.
I think this gentleman, right, I think, definitely. Okay. Joyce, let's let, Victor. 'Cause I think
First
Victor
of
has a
all,
great
Victor
understanding.
Diaz, 100 South Point Drive, apartment 3705. I appear here today as the president of the Continuum Master Association, as well as the president of the Continuum South Tower Condominium Association. I want to first thank Commissioner Greco for putting this item on the agenda to help both educate the City Commission and the community about the issues of concern to the residents south of Fifth, as well as the mayor for granting us this time certain, especially today that we have a fire drill. So we appreciate both of you doing that. Since March of last year, when I first was elected to the Board of Directors and the construction of the Cebo restaurant began, we have been engaged in a constructive dialogue with both the developer, which is South Beach Ocean Parcel Limited 2, an assignee of the original developer under the development agreement, and the operator, Liberty Entertainment Group, which is represented by Mr. Nick DiDonato here. I have had dinner with Mr. Nick DiDonato. I have met with him on 2 or 3 occasions. We have expressed since that time a number of concerns, some of which are no longer of concern anymore. And we don't need to dwell on that. We appreciate both Mr. Nick DiDonato's response to the neighborhood's concerns, and I want to publicly acknowledge that with respect to the issue of, and we think we had a right to enforce those restrictions, but he didn't fight us, with respect to the garbage refuse delivery, he has agreed to do it at our loading docks. With respect to the size of trucks that will be going up our entrance driveway, he has agreed to the restriction that applies to all other commercial uses and residential uses in the building. And with respect to service deliveries, he has agreed to do them at our loading docks, which applies to all other commercial and residential uses. So we are glad that he is abiding by the same rules that our other commercial tenants are. And we appreciate his acknowledging those in a letter that he sent to the Commission. We also appreciate that the zoning director has indicated to us, and that he has indicated to us in writing to this City Commission, that he does not plan to have an entertainment establishment at this restaurant, and that once the building code, once the permit is granted, the development agreement will be terminated, and the zoning that is currently in place south of Fifth, which prohibits entertainment establishments south of Fifth, will prohibit to future uses of this parcel should the Cebo restaurant not be successful. I want to be clear that it is the intent, it is the desire of our residents that Cebo succeed, but that it succeed in a manner that does not interfere with the quality of life of our residents. There are 2 issues that are of continuing concern to our residents. One is the city will have to pass on a valet application for the ramp for this restaurant. It is a ramp operation that will be done at an administrative level by your parking director, supervised by your assistant city manager, and ultimately under the authority of your city manager. We have asked 5 things so that it is clear what we are asking of you to instruct the city administration. 1, that you carefully evaluate the parking, the valet parking study, traffic study that has been given to the city. We believe that it is flawed. We have hired our own traffic engineer. We have given a commentary on that. We can comment, and we're happy to talk to city staff further about misimpressions about the competing studies. But we have concerns about the fact that even their own traffic study indicates that in order to maintain free-flowing traffic on South Point Drive during peak hours, they would be required to maintain 15 ramp attendants. Second, we would ask the city to, as you have in other ramp operations, be conscious of the fact that sometimes off-duty police officers can be required in order to maintain one open lane of traffic. And I'd like to show you the configuration in a minute so you understand what critical concern this is to the residents of the Continuum and the adjoining buildings. Third, like you know, it exists all throughout South Beach. We would like the city to prohibit VIP ramp parking so that you won't see Bentleys and Rolls Royces occupying the ramp spaces that otherwise should be utilized to get cars off the street. Fourth, we would like the city to examine carefully the proposed circulation route for valet storage. Right now, it calls for those cars to cross 2 active lanes of traffic within 200 feet and do either a left-hand turn onto Ocean Drive right in front of the entrance to our building or a U-turn on South Point Drive. And we've had dialogue with the city about how that would create an enormous amount of congestion during peak hours. And fifth, we have asked the city staff to verify the capacity of the proposed storage lots. We have been told by other business owners who operate major restaurants in the neighborhood that the very same lots that are being proposed by this operator to store their valet cars are already at full capacity, servicing the many other major commercial destination restaurants that we are lucky enough to have been built south of 5th. And let me just show you why the residents are so agitated.
Victor, can you use that mic?
First of all, we have been dialoguing with the city, as you have correctly noticed, in a constructive manner since June. The assistant city manager admitted it was an error. But the citizens get very agitated when they see concrete being poured, even though we have been assured that this ramp is illegal. You just heard it. It's there, it's physically there, but we now know it is illegal. It was built without a permit. Even though 8 months in advance, we were warning you in the very presentation that that Joe points out, we gave him on his very first day of work.
I can't.
No, Victor.
I'm not situated here.
Victor, I want to chime in.
Let me just.
No, respectfully, I've spoken with the city. It was permitted. It was just erroneous.
The error was ours.
So there's
okay.
no
erroneously permitted.
Right. So there's no illegalities.
Okay. Erroneously permitted. Okay. So citizens get concerned when they see concrete being poured, even though they've been told no permit will be issued. The original no ramp has been authorized. The original configuration approved by the commission and in the concept plan, and I'll discuss it, which is part of the development agreement, shows a drop-off here, which would mean that 400 cars would have to go from here to here at peak hours, or 100 or 20 or 30, and either make a left-hand turn, this is our driveway, or make a U-turn and cross 2 active lanes of traffic. Here you see that the ramp that's been built is currently being used by cars every single day to park and blocking the access into the entrance to the Continuum. You also see a plaza configuration that has been built that includes waiting benches outside, which is not consistent with the original concept plan. So issue number 1 is how this ramp is going to operate. It should not be here. That puts it even closer to the intersection. It should be here, and we have concerns about the traffic circulation. Issue number 2, we want you also to know that directly opposite, and consistent with issue number 1, directly opposite this ramp which is servicing a 400-seat destination restaurant.
I'm sorry, can you situate me just because I live in North
Yeah.
Beach, I'm down
South
there.
Point Drive.
South Point Drive,
And the driveway of Continuum, Ocean Drive.
and then that's Ocean
This
Drive.
is Ocean One that I'm showing you now, which is the related project which is currently being built by Plaza.
Got it.
The restaurant SIBO is here. This major destination restaurant, which is proposed for Ocean One, is directly across the street. And there was a ramp operation here also proposed, which, as you see with this little X, we highlighted back in May, was of great concern to our residents. So our first issue has to do with asking you to make sure that you are very, very proactive on the ramp operation. As to the rooftop, this is the amended and restated development agreement dated March 5th, 1999. As you heard your city attorney state, it is the opinion of the city attorney that there are certain vested rights under that agreement because a building permit was pulled by the developer prior to the enactment in 2009 of an ordinance which I sponsored, barring commercial rooftop operations south of 5th, an ordinance that was supported by the South of Fifth community, advocated for years by Maurice Sunshine and Frank Delvecchio, and I was able to sponsor it when I was on the city commission. This is the building permit plan and the DRB order that was approved, that was vested in. You will see that there is a configuration of the plaza and a requirement for certain planters which align with the appearance of the other side of the driveway in the DRB plan. They're saying they're vested in their rooftop operation because they pulled their permit under the 2007. Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you are stuck with this, if you are grandfathered in the roof, then you are stuck with your plaza configuration and your proposed handicap ramp operation. At staff level, a very different plaza configuration was approved. The planters that have been lowered in size for concerns that the developer privately expressed to staff, but we were not at the table. These planters were eliminated, obviously. A new configuration with stairs leading out was permitted. And most importantly, the design of the plaza, including these waiting benches, which will only add to congregation outside the building. By the way, this is the residential tower immediately across it. We have 1,000 bedrooms.
Is that where Crudo is? Bar Crudo and the bakery?
Bar Crudo's right here, correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
Right here.
Okay.
Right here. Bar Crudo would be right here. The Ocean One will be here. So what we have said in a creative way to the city is be on our side. If you are going to give them grandfathered rights in on rooftop operations, then hold their feet to the fire with respect to the configuration of the building permit that they approved and the concept plan which this city commission approved in the development agreement, any amendment to which requires city commission approval. So they may not have to go to a land use board, but there is an argument to be made that they have to come to the city commission to change the physical configuration of that plaza. In exchange for which, we would gladly give them their preferred plaza configuration as built and even negotiate with them with respect to their handicap ramp in exchange for some concessions on their rooftop operations.
Okay.
If you give us the leverage, we will use it in good faith. What are we asking with respect to rooftop operations? It's very hard to get a consensus among 1,000 people, of which I'm surprised how many took the time to come today. But, you know, we've asked Mr. Donato, could you agree to pull special events permits if you're going to have 5 a.m. so that there will be review instead of insisting on a matter of right? Could you agree to close at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 on Friday and Saturdays and at midnight on every other night of the week? If we could reach an agreement like that and put a restrictive covenant in the land, we'll work with you on your valet operation, and we will gladly give you your reconfigured plaza entrance.
Got it.
That is what we are asking for
Thank you,
today.
Victor. Hey, Victor, let me just get back to the 5 things. Number 1, valet parking, a parking study, right?
Victor?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2, off-duty police for traffic flow. Number 3, prohibit VIP parking.
Ramp parking.
Right, ramp. Number 4, valet storage flow. You have concerns about that. We need to verify it. And number 5, verify capacity of valet storage lots. Those are the
Correct.
5 things. Okay.
On the valet.
But you want us to do these 5 things. Joe, are these
And the
5?
time during the week and weekends, I
Right.
think he mentioned.
And correct, the number of.
Can we do, Joe, first of all, Joe, thank you for all the great work
Yeah,
you've done.
exactly.
South the Fifth, because you've done unbelievable. You really have. No, all of you have, and thank you, because you really have done amazing stuff, and we appreciate how far you've gotten it. Can we get these 5 things done?
Absolutely, and we are working
Okay.
on the 5 things.
Good.
We're also, and for the record,
Yep.
Mr. Haber's here, and we also are waiting on whether or not it would be okay to even consider a valet either drop-off or a pickup to address a lot of these concerns. If we were to drop the cars off on the other side of the driveway, we haven't heard back. Whatever their answer is, we will take that into
The
consideration.
residents have put it to them, the majority view of the residents
You'll
is
speak for
no.
a second, yeah. Right.
They would like-
Victor, I first of all, let me say one thing. I'll just speak for myself, obviously, as the mayor, but I could tell you that behind you and the residents 100% and what you need to get done. I believe that quality of life for our residents is number one, primo, most important thing. And I can understand your tremendous frustration. And these 5 things we got to move on. And I think that, with the rooftop, any way that we can figure out so that it's not a disruption to the residents, I believe that we want to get
We have the
done.
operator, I think we have the operator here.
Yeah, and I'd like one more person to speak, because there is an even more aggressive point of view than that which I have, and I would like
Well,
Mr.
if I may have
Haber.
an opportunity to
Yes.
speak before, please.
Oh, sure,
Please,
Nick,
please.
of course.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. It's a better opportunity than I've been provided before.
name, please.
because
Sorry,
My
your
name is Nick DiDonato, President and CEO of Liberty Entertainment Group, and we are going to be the operators of Chibo Wine Bar. My organization has over 1,600 employees. We have restaurants and operations in Toronto. We currently own in Miami the Coral Gables Country Club and the Chibo Wine Bar in Coral Gables. Over the past 2 years, we've come into this neighborhood and looked at a property which was provided to us by Mr. Eichner. When we looked at that property, the parameters were provided to us: the rooftop patio, the ability to have a full license till 5 a.m., the ability to have a license in valet. So we looked at the development agreement, which was agreed to, and we entered into a lease with Mr. Eichner based on those parameters. Although we looked at that and identified there's some of those things that we do not necessarily need and will work with the community. Over the past 2 years, I've been trying to work with the community, but this is the first time I've actually been able to sit in front of the residents here, because none of them have seen me before. And the reason for that is because I've asked Mr. Diaz several times if I can make presentations to the condo association and the residents and address their concerns and have an open discussion, and I've never been provided that opportunity. Not once have I been provided that opportunity. When I did the Coral Gables Country Club, I was in the same situation. The residents at the country club or in the area, because the country club is a 45,000 square foot facility located in a residential community. And we as an organization understand the ramifications of a commercial operation in a residential community. And we have been the best organization in Toronto and in Miami to address those situations. Personally, I'm an engineer. I'm a transportation consultant. I
I want to know how that mayor in Toronto handled this.
Well, if I may say, I've been on the Economic Advisory Committee for every Toronto mayor since June, and since 1996. So I sit on the Economic Advisory Committee for the City of Toronto. I currently sit on the TTC, the Toronto Transportation Committee, which is the third largest transportation committee in North America. And I'm sitting on there, on that committee as a business person who understands the nuances between community and business, commercial and residential. And the city has always looked to me to address those situations and sit on their committees. At Coral Gables, I was afforded the opportunity to have many meetings with the residents. I hosted meetings at our facility. I was able to speak to the community. I was able to try to really, look at their concerns and address their concerns. 3 years later, the Coral Gables Country Club is one of the most prolific event spaces in the city. It's embraced by the community. The Liberty Cafe is a neighborhood hub, and we are really something that's identified as one of the successes in the city between commercial and public sector and private sector relationships. And we pride ourselves in having these open dialogues. I have not been provided the opportunity, after numerous requests, to address the community. So this is my first time, and I'd like to address that community. When we decide what property, on this property, what type of restaurant we are going to put in there, and we have many restaurants. We have nightclubs, we have spiced food Asian restaurants, we have Italian restaurants. We chose Chibo specifically for the community. This is not a restaurant which is targeting the tourist market. We're here because we want people in this audience to be our customers, because we believe that what's happening south of 5th and in all of Miami Beach is that every restaurant that comes there is catering to everybody but the local community. The price points are astronomical. The drinks are expensive. It's not comfortable. Nobody comes to Miami Beach other than tourists. And we believe there's an opportunity to engage the local community, to engage the people at the continuum, to provide them service and something they need. To the point where we also have created a market area where they can take our pastas, which are homemade, and our sauces home with them. This is completely designed for the community.
Right.
Now, in our meetings with Victor, the first couple of meetings, we were talking about the valet. And the valet originally was designed to be on the driveway. And they had a curb cut for handicap. Victor had asked us to concede and allow the valet to be moved to the north of the property. As a transportation expert, and I've been in transportation for 25 years, and I've been running restaurants for 25 years, I consulted Victor and said, look, removing the curb cut from that area is only compounding your problems that you're worried about. I identified that without that curb cut, now you are restricted 2 lanes instead of 3. I cannot control people from dropping off their people at the front door. I personally don't have the ability or the authority to do so, and I don't think the city of Miami wants to have the police standing at my front door policing this. So I felt that three areas for a 3-lane driveway would be much better than a 2-lane driveway. I conceded and said, fine, Victor, where would you like the valet drop-off? He indicated to the north of our building. We conceded, we moved that. We met with him and talked about their concerns with respect to garbage removal, their concerns with respect to deliveries. And what we said to Victor and his association, what would you like us to do?
Mr. Denuzzo, I hate to interrupt, only because I know that in 15 minutes we're going under siege in this area. But let me just say one thing. First of all, I sympathize with you. First of all, I know you run a great operation.
Thank you.
It's a great business. I mean, it's really an incredible operation. You got a great reputation. And by the way, Victor is probably one of the most unreasonable human beings in the world.
Thank you.
But we love him. Okay? So I do sympathize with you.
That
we
is
love him.
my challenge.
Okay? Just so you know. Okay? So I get it.
If I was afforded the opportunity to
I totally get it. But let me ask you this. Is there any way, because you got a bunch of residents here, and I think we're all kind of having this conversation, is there any way here you could say, listen, it's all about the rooftop. We'll close at this time. If we need to extend because we have a major event, we'll have a permit. Is there any way? Because you know what's happening? By the way, I understand. I get where you're coming from. And listen, this neighborhood, south of 5th, is just becoming the most incredible residential neighborhood in probably the whole state and probably the whole southeast. And, the residents, as you've gotten to know, are a little bit active. And I think if there's any way we could just figure out a way that you say, listen, we get it, all right, we want to be a part of the community.
We are interested in speaking to the community and the residents.
But they're all here. They're all here. Can we?
Come on.
So how can we just figure this out?
The mayor's asking.
I'm not putting you on the spot.
Yeah,
I mean,
we are currently able to have a 5 a.m. license.
What's that?
We are currently able to have a 5 a.m. license.
Right, but I guess what the people are saying is they don't, most of the residents don't want to have a situation. There's drinking and partying until 5 a.m. when they're.
They're going to
they
call
bought these
code on, they're going to call
incredible
code on you
condos.
every day.
They got to, I'm telling you.
And
it's gonna be a-
I understand that, and we don't want code to be
It's a
called.
war.
We're
It'll
not
be a
gonna-
war. It'll be a war.
We're not
of
going
that
to be
blood.
running that.
And by the way, you've been so great with them, and Victor acknowledges it, and it's so true. You got a great company. Can't we just figure out a way where you say, listen, we'll voluntarily do this, and we'll.
And it's not like you're giving up the right to do it
No,
forever.
no,
Just
you're
say
just
that
saying,
we'll voluntarily,
That-
we
voluntarily-
have the right. Hold on. What he's saying is, we have the right to do it till 5 a.m., but we are going to voluntarily, because we want to be part of the community, we're going to voluntarily close it at 1 and see how business goes. And if we think we really need to do it, then we'll come back and we'll tell you why we got to do it.
Commissioner Wolf.
Did you try that?
Yes, I did.
No. So
I did offer that. I said voluntarily to Mr. Diaz.
So wait, let him talk.
Wait. Mr.
What were you saying?
Continue.
You did? I spoke to Mr. Diaz and identified that we would voluntarily close at 2 a.m.
On the weekends.
Friday, Monday through Sunday, reserve 5 a.m.
Right.
or whenever.
What about, I mean.
Well, listen, that's a start. I mean, that's a success to a point. For
I'm
gosh
happy
sake,
to
you
be
guys should
voluntarily
What
It's
about-
better
let
than
me
5
ask you a
a.m.
question.
7 days a week.
During the
listen,
week,
get-
hold on.